Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving into a fascinating topic that has intrigued scholars, theologians, and believers for centuries. Genesis is not the ONLY creation account in the Old Testament. While most of us are familiar with the creation story in the book of Genesis, there are actually multiple creation narratives scattered throughout the Old Testament. Each one offers unique perspectives and insights, and today we'll be exploring 5 of them. Stick around to discover how these diverse accounts broaden our understanding of creation and the divine. Let's set the record straight right from the start. Genesis isn't the only creation story in the Old Testament. Yeah, you heard that right. While Genesis might be the most famous one, Adam and Eve, the Garden of Eden, the whole classic setup, it's just one version. There are other creation accounts hidden in unexpected parts of the Bible, and they tell a very different story. So, let's dive in. Here's where it gets interesting. Psalm 74. You probably think of the Psalms as songs, prayers, or poetic expressions, right? But what if I told you that Psalm 74 isn't just a prayer of distress? Nope. Buried within it is a cosmic battle, an ancient clash between God and sea monsters. That's right, sea monsters. This isn't the peaceful, orderly process we see in Genesis. This is a chaotic, violent struggle between Yahweh and the forces of chaos. Check this out. It was you who split open the sea by your power. You broke the heads of the monster in the waters. It was you who crushed the heads of Leviathan. Psalm 74, 13-14. That's not Genesis. That's not let there be light or a serene garden bursting with life. This is God going head-to-head with Leviathan, a massive multi-headed sea beast. Leviathan people. It sounds like something straight out of a fantasy novel or an ancient myth. And if this reminds you of other ancient cultures, you're onto something. It echoes stories from Babylonian mythology, where the god Marduk fights the sea monster Tiamat to bring order to the cosmos. Now think about this for a moment. In Genesis 1, God speaks the universe into existence in a calm, orderly fashion. But here in Psalm 74, we see God waging a cosmic war to bring order out of chaos. These are 2 completely different narratives about how the world came to be, both hiding in plain sight in the Bible. And this isn't just a minor detail, it reshapes how we think about creation. So here's the big question. Why does the Bible offer more than one creation story? Why do we get this epic cosmic battle right alongside the more familiar version where God simply speaks everything into being? Let's talk about Leviathan for a second. This creature appears in more than one part of the Old Testament. He's a symbol of chaos, representing the wild, untamed forces of the sea that the ancient world believed were always threatening to disrupt the ordered world. The message here is that God isn't just a creator. He's a conqueror, battling and subduing the forces of chaos to maintain order. Understanding these different creation stories adds depth to the text. It shows that the ancient Israelites were engaging with complex ideas about chaos, order, and the nature of the universe. And it reveals that their understanding of God was more nuanced than we might have realized, blending different traditions and narratives to express profound truths about the world and its origins. The Creator doesn't just make the world, He has to defend it from chaos. And that changes everything about how we think of creation. It's not just a one-time act of bringing everything into being. It's an ongoing struggle, a cosmic battle to keep the universe from unraveling. This idea of a battle isn't just poetic language. It's rooted in an ancient belief that the sea, this wild, untamable force, was a constant threat to order, life, and creation itself. God's role isn't just to build the universe, but to keep defending it from these chaotic forces. Take Psalm 74, for example. In this account, creation isn't a finished act, it's ongoing. God is actively holding back the chaos, keeping it at bay. But it doesn't stop there. Psalm 89 takes it up a notch. This time, it talks about God crushing another sea monster named Rahab, yet another symbol of chaos. You rule over the surging sea. When its waves rise, you still them. You crushed Rahab like one of the slain. Psalm 89, 9-10. Once again, we see this image of God as a cosmic warrior, not just a creator, but a conqueror fighting to maintain order. And here's the wild part. Nobody really talks about these passages. Everyone's so focused on Genesis, but the Old Testament is full of these hidden gems, these fragments of different creation myths. When you piece them together, a much more complex picture emerges, one that shows God not as some distant, detached creator, but as a force right in the thick of things, battling against chaos to keep everything from falling apart. Let's be honest, that's not the usual image of God most people have from the Bible, is it? But it's right there, in black and white: Leviathan, Rahab, the raging sea, the battle to keep the universe from slipping back into chaos. So, why is this epic struggle included in the same sacred text as the calm, orderly creation story we know from Genesis? What were the writers trying to tell us? Were they preserving older stories from a time when people believed the world was always on the edge of disaster, needing a powerful deity to hold it all together? One thing's for sure, Genesis may give us the beginning, but these other stories reveal a lot more about what it takes to keep the universe running. God isn't just a creator, He's a defender, a protector, and a conqueror, constantly pushing back against the chaos that threatens to undo everything. Genesis doesn't tell the whole story of creation, and once you uncover these other accounts, you can't unsee them. They're vivid, powerful, and they offer a completely different perspective on who God is and what creation really means. A God who fights to maintain order isn't the serene, all-powerful figure we're used to hearing about. But that's exactly what makes it so compelling. It's messy, raw, and fascinating. Here's the thing, nobody seems to be talking about it. The Psalms and Isaiah are packed with creation stories that completely fly under the radar. Most people think they know the Old Testament, but there's this whole dimension they've probably missed. If you thought Genesis had all the answers, these texts are about to turn that on its head. Take Psalm 89, for example. It's not just a song of praise, it's a declaration of cosmic power. In this account, God isn't simply creating the world, He's actively crushing His enemies to keep it all from spiraling into chaos. That's right, creation here is built on victory, not peace. God's strength isn't just in words like, "Let there be light." No, this time, it's His mighty arm, crushing Rahab, this primal force of disorder, right on the cosmic stage. This isn't the gentle Genesis story we're used to. It's battle scars, brute force, and a hard-fought victory over chaos. And then there's Isaiah. When you think of Isaiah, you probably think of prophecy visions of the future, calls for repentance. But here's the twist. Isaiah 40 gives us a creation narrative that's anything but passive. God isn't just sitting back, watching everything unfold. He's stretching out the heavens like a warrior pitching his tent after a battle. It's not just poetic imagery, it's Isaiah's way of showing us that creation is still ongoing. God is still at work, still shaping, still imposing order where there was none. In other words, He didn't stop after Genesis. Creation is an ongoing project, and it's anything but passive. There's something undeniably raw and untamed about how these texts describe the world. In Isaiah 51, God's creation is a continuous act of pushing back chaos, a never-ending struggle to maintain order. It's not a one-time event, but a constant battle, a battle that shows a different side of God, a side that's powerful, dynamic, and always engaged. So, why do these other creation stories matter? Because they reveal a God who isn't just a distant architect, but a warrior, constantly fighting to keep the universe from falling apart. It's a side of the story that rarely gets attention, but it's right there, waiting to be seen. And once you see it, it changes everything about how you understand the Old Testament, and maybe even how you see the world itself. Think of creation not as a peaceful, orderly process, but as an act of defiance. God doesn't just organize the universe, He pierces through the forces that want to tear it apart. This isn't let there be light calmly spoken into the void. This is God taking on the monsters of chaos, making sure they stay down. And yet, we rarely talk about this. These aren't just footnotes or side notes. They are full-fledged, dynamic creation accounts that paint a completely different picture of God. He's not a distant architect. He's hands-on, right in the thick of things, making sure everything doesn't collapse into chaos. The Psalms and Isaiah show us a God who isn't done after 6 days of work. They reveal a God at war with disorder, constantly fighting to keep the universe from falling apart. This is a side of the Bible that often gets overlooked, but it's crucial because it tells us something different about the nature of God and creation itself. And here's another thing people don't like to talk about. The two creation accounts in Genesis don't line up. In Genesis 1, we get the version most people know. God creates light, separates the waters, brings forth dry land, then all the plants, animals, and finally humans. It's a neat, structured process, with humans as the crowning achievement of God's work. But flip the page to Genesis 2, and suddenly it's a whole different story. The order of creation shifts dramatically. There's no mention of starting with light. Instead, the focus is immediately on land, and humans appear almost right away, even before the plants and animals are on the scene. So, which is it? Did God start with a cosmic light show, or was it all about the dust of the earth and creating humans first? Let's get into the details, because this isn't just a case of switching up a few facts. These two chapters present two distinct visions of how the world came to be. Genesis 1 is all about order. Each day builds on the one before it, with everything coming into existence in a precise, purposeful sequence. It's like pieces of a puzzle falling perfectly into place, with God speaking each element into being and declaring it good. The process is calm, measured, and methodical, ending with humans as the pinnacle of creation. But Genesis 2 flips the script. It's raw, direct, and more intimate. There's no grand buildup, no step-by-step order. Instead, the story dives straight into the creation of humans, formed from the dust, with God's hands in the dirt, shaping life directly. Plants and animals follow, but the sequence feels less structured, more spontaneous. It's not a grand design unfolding from a distance. It's hands-on, almost like improvisation. These two accounts aren't just rearranging details. They're offering two different ways to think about creation. One shows God as a cosmic architect, planning each stage with precision. The other reveals a God who is deeply involved, creating in a way that feels immediate, responsive, and even gritty. This contrast isn't a mistake or a contradiction. It's a way of showing the complexity of God's role in creation. He is both the calm, orderly designer and the dynamic, hands-on creator. And when you start to see how the Psalms and Isaiah fit into this picture, with their images of God battling chaos to hold the universe together, it adds even more depth. Creation isn't a one-and-done event. It's a constant, ongoing struggle to maintain order in the face of chaos. So when you put all of this together, you get a much richer, more complex vision of who God is. Not just a serene, distant creator, but a powerful, relentless force, fighting to keep the world from falling apart. It's raw, it's messy, and it's absolutely fascinating. Think of Genesis 1 like a perfectly designed puzzle God speaks, and everything falls into place effortlessly, following a divine script. It's orderly, precise, and everything happens right on cue. But then you turn the page to Genesis 2, and it's a whole different story. This one is way more hands-on. God isn't just speaking life into existence, He's sculpting it. He forms man out of dust, like a potter shaping clay, plants a garden with His own hands, and breathes life directly into Adam. It's intimate, raw, and personal, almost like we're getting a front row seat to the creative process. And unlike Genesis 1, it's not tidy. There's no set timeline, no methodical step-by-step creation. It feels immediate and, dare I say, a bit improvised. So why are there two stories? Why the tension between them? Most people try to smooth out the differences, bending over backward to explain how these accounts fit together. But the truth is, the Bible doesn't force them to align. They're left there, side by side, with all their glaring differences, almost daring us to notice. If you look closely at Genesis 2, creation seems to revolve around humanity. Man is the focal point, created first before anything else. God plants a garden specifically for Adam, and only afterward brings forth plants and animals, almost as if they're secondary to man's existence. Compare that to Genesis 1, where humans come at the very end after everything else is perfectly set in place. It's like we're the final touch on a masterpiece. Two different visions of humanity's role in creation. In Genesis 1, we're part of the grand design, a piece of a bigger system. In Genesis 2, we're the center of it all, the reason the whole system exists. That's a massive shift in perspective. It completely changes how we understand our place in the universe. Are we just another part of creation, or are we the reason everything else exists? And let's not forget about the timeline clash. Genesis 1 gives us that famous 7-day structure, with each day meticulously planned out, from light to land to life. But Genesis 2 throws the timeline out the window. Things just happen. We go from dust to life, to plants, to animals, and then the creation of woman, with no clear indication of how long any of it takes. It's a fluid, organic process, more like a story unfolding in real time than a project being executed step by step. These two accounts leave us with a pretty bold conclusion. Creation in the Bible isn't a straightforward single narrative. It's layered, complex, and sometimes even contradictory. So why was the Bible written this way? Why place two different versions of creation back to back, knowing they don't perfectly match up? It's almost as if the text is inviting us to wrestle with these differences, to dig deeper, and to ask bigger questions. Maybe, just maybe, these accounts weren't meant to be harmonized. Maybe they're offering us different ways of seeing the same reality, one where order and chaos, design and spontaneity coexist. And that's what makes these stories so powerful. They don't just tell us how the world was made, they show us the many ways we can understand it. Here's the thing, when it comes to creation, the Bible doesn't just hand us one neat, definitive answer. It gives us multiple lenses to view the story. One is orderly and cosmic. The other is intimate and raw. And these accounts don't just sit quietly next to each other, they clash. They make us confront the idea that creation wasn't a simple, linear event. It was, and maybe still is, a complex, messy, ongoing process. But let's take this even further. Let's dive into something most people would never expect to connect with the Bible: Canaanite mythology. Yeah, you heard that right. The ancient Israelites were surrounded by cultures with their own gods, their own myths, and their own stories about how the universe came to be. And here's the wild part: those influences crept into the Bible, showing up in ways that might surprise you. One of the most dramatic examples? God versus Tannin, the sea monster. Before you start thinking, wait, isn't that just some random myth? Let's look at the text. Isaiah 27, 1 drops a bombshell. In that day, the Lord will punish Leviathan, the fleeing serpent, Leviathan, the coiling serpent. He will slay the monster of the sea. That monster of the sea is Tannin, a chaos beast straight out of the Canaanite playbook. And this isn't some obscure, fringe verse hidden in the Bible. This is Isaiah, one of the major voices of the Old Testament, talking about a cosmic battle between God and this ancient sea monster. But here's what makes it even more interesting. Tannin wasn't just a random creature in Canaanite mythology. The god Baal, yes, the same Baal who shows up all over the Old Testament as the god of Israel's enemies, has his own epic fight with a sea god named Yam and this chaos monster, Tannin. Baal has to defeat these forces of chaos to establish order, to secure his kingship over the heavens. Sound familiar? It should. Welcome to Blessovia Science TV, where we take you on an exhilarating journey through the cosmos and unravel the mysteries of science. We are excited to offer you the opportunity to become a valued member of our ever-growing community of cosmic enthusiasts and knowledge seekers. Exclusive access to cosmic content. As a member of Blessovia Science TV, you will gain exclusive access to a treasure trove of cosmic content, including documentaries, interviews with leading scientists, space missions updates, and awe-inspiring visualizations of the universe, live Q, and sessions with experts. Your membership will grant you the chance to participate in live Q and sessions with renowned scientists, astronomers, and space explorers. Get your burning questions answered by those who push the boundaries of human knowledge. Embark on a journey that spans the cosmos and join us in unraveling the secrets of the universe. Become a Blessovia Science TV member today, and together we will reach for the stars. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, and share. Don't forget to leave your comment.